Fun fact, games are expensive. And no, I'm not talking about the working 4 shifts in my job to buy a single DLC pack expensive. I'm talking about the development side of expensive games. You'd be pretty hard pressed to find many notable games made with less than $10,000. Heck, 2048? Yeah, that game took about $500 in total to produce. And not only are games expensive to make, they are hard to make, with the full game development team often consisting of anywhere from 10 to hundreds of people spending potential years just to produce one title. Now, obviously, this number is highly subject to change based on exactly what kind of game is being developed. Smaller indie games tend to have a smaller team, studio, and cost, while larger games tend to have a larger team, studio, and cost. And that brings us to AAA games. In summary, these are these super giant games. No, not the actual LLC, I mean, they're big. They cost a ton, have a ton of people developing them, and are often made by big studios. Think Call of Duty, or Far Cry, or AAA. There are many different AAA games out there, spanning across all kinds of genres, of platformer, FPS, strategy, racing, action-adventure, etc. But I have noticed recently that there is a genre missing. AAA games have covered so many genres nowadays, but one still to this day hasn't really been touched. Roguelikes and Roguelites. In my research, I couldn't find nearly any AAA roguelikes or roguelites in the market. Now, there are games like Prey Mooncrash, which is a DLC to Prey, that have roguelike aspects, but often, like Prey Mooncrash, they are either extensions to pre-existing games, spin-offs, or are not specifically centered on their roguelike aspects. And heck, even these kinds of games are not too common at all. So suffice to say, for decades, we haven't seen nearly any triple full A roguelites. Wow, what? What? What did I say? We haven't seen nearly any triple full A roguelikes. So suffice to say, for decades, we haven't seen nearly any full AAA roguelikes. It's pretty much always been in the hands of the indie community. But will that trend continue? Well, let's find out. Triple full A roguelikes. So, AAA roguelikes. What's the probability that they will be a thing in the future? Well, a lot more probable than you may think. Exhibit A, this game, Returnal. Returnal is a full AAA game that is entirely a roguelike, something that I have never seen prior, and it looks awesome from what I've gathered from the trailers. As a note, I know Returnal is out, but it is a PS5 exclusive as of now, and I don't want to spoil it in case I play it in the future, so I'm going off the trailers for reference of it. But what I gleaned from the trailer was pretty dang cool. Returnal is a third-person shooter roguelike in which you find yourself crashed on an ever-changing alien planet, and have to traverse through the barren remains of an ancient civilization to find your escape. However, upon every death, you find yourself restarted back to the beginning of your journey, faced with a brand new random terrain. So, this game perfectly fits the bill of a roguelike, permadeath and procedural generation, all encompassed in beautiful graphics and a dark, compelling story. I'm not going to dig much more into the game for sake of time, but be sure to check it out if you're more interested, or maybe play it yourself if you have a PS5. But back to the topic of the video. Although this game looks incredible by itself, it also serves a larger purpose. It is the first full AAA roguelike that I have ever seen, a very momentous occasion, because I think that this game will spark a brand new wave of AAA roguelikes. Let me explain. The roguelike genre has never been very popular, and for the most part has been delegated to the indie community since its roots in the 1980s. But as of recently, the popularity of this genre has grown exponentially. This is largely attributed to the recent success of multiple roguelikes, success that is comparable to big-budget AAA games. Spelunky, The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, Enter the Gungeon, Dead Cells, Hades, Risk of Rain 2, Noita, all these games and more have been pretty big hits, and at the time of this recording, all the ones I listed have been released in the past 13 years. 7 if we don't count Spelunky. The roguelike genre has just really started to gain momentum with the success of these games, and where better is that shown than in AAA games. Making a AAA game is no easy process, and is often only delegated to games that are seen as having potential to succeed. Seeing as roguelikes have never been very popular in the past, I think many big studios just haven't seen them as lucrative as other more popular genres, and thus have kind of ignored making games in the genre. However, with the recent rise in popularity of roguelikes as a genre, I think that bigger studios are really going to start taking notice of roguelikes and their potential. In fact, we've already seen this happen in the form of the release of Returnal, and luckily, for a first impression of a AAA roguelike, Returnal was an awesome pick. Based on my research, Returnal was met with abundant positivity and has garnered the interest of many people to the roguelike genre. People like this game, and while it wasn't perfect, it was good enough to get a lot of people who played it interested in roguelikes, people that otherwise may never have known about the genre. This in turn means that those people might go play other roguelikes and tell their friends about those roguelikes, and then their friends go play those other roguelikes and tell their friends about them, and so on and so on. There are tons of good roguelikes for people to choose from that they can rebound to after they play Returnal, and so there's a high chance that if they enjoyed Returnal, they will also enjoy those other roguelikes. And as the popularity of roguelikes grows from this and the general success of roguelikes as a whole, big companies are going to start start seeing that roguelikes are a lucrative market, if they haven't already. There's tons of potential games to make in the roguelike genre, and as of now, there are pretty much no AAA roguelikes, meaning that bigger companies would have little competition to fight against. It's an all-win scenario, one that I think bigger studios are going to recognize. And while that's great for big studios, that's also great for us, the consumers. If this all happens like I think it will, we are going to start seeing a lot more AAA roguelikes on the market, which is awesome. Now, as I said before, that doesn't mean that all AAA roguelikes will be a giant success, but there's a pretty good chance that they will do well, what with having massive budgets and teams with more people than I have hours on Risk of Raid 2. And for indie game fans, the surge in AAA roguelikes will probably be noticed by indie devs, prompting them to make more roguelikes and even further promoting the popularity of the genre. It's just an all-around win for everyone. I can't guarantee that this is exactly what the future holds for roguelikes, but all the evidence I've seen seems to point to AAA roguelikes being a thing in the future, and I for one am excited for it. While indie games are just as good, if not better, than many AAA games do often have that over-the-top content that comes with a big budget team and studio, with extremely polished graphics, gameplay, game design, etc. So having roguelikes with that big budget polish will be a great treat for us roguelike fans. And the more popular roguelikes get as a genre, which AAA roguelikes will probably promote, the more roguelikes in general we will get, which is also awesome, because new games in the roguelike genre, while not desert dry, are a little sparse compared to other more popular genres, so the more the merrier. But I must ask, what do you all think about this, dear viewers? Will AAA roguelikes ever be a thing? Will they ever be a thing very soon, if at all? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Wait for me, my love. I will find you someday. Someday.